Okay, the webinar has started. The webinar is being recorded. One few minutes. Been a long time since we had a meeting.
It has.
Yeah.
Happy New Year, y'all.
Yeah.
This is where it shows 2 attendees and only 1 attendee is there or showing.
That is funny. Okay. Everyone have a nice holiday.
Yes. Yes, I did.
Had a good time in Switzerland.
Yeah.
Right. But not a lot of snow, right?
Not where my son lives, but we spent a week up in Valais, and there was snow there.
Sounds beautiful.
This is so weird. Shows 5 attendees with 3 attendees there. It's always been the right number of people before.
Yeah, that
Nope.
is where there's
Number
someone's
4.
missing.
No. All
Hmm.
right. I'll stop bringing it up. 1 more minute, we'll get going. So with regards to Spofford Street, Carol, assuming she shows up, is not going to be able to vote on that, I don't think.
Oh. Is
I
she
think it
available?
precedes her.
Yes. It does. It's an amendment to something that she wasn't involved in to begin with, but because it's an amendment, I don't know that that's.
I want to say the amendment precedes Carol.
Were they
'Cause how long-
submitted?
Yeah, we've been at this for a while. I don't know if you can vote on the amendment or Spofford Street, Carol. So I don't know if it's been on the docket longer than you've been on the commission.
It started back in
A
May.
good portion of that time, it was continued and continued and continued, so she may not have missed anything.
Yeah, but it was opened.
Yeah, we did have a hearing on it in May. In the spring.
I forgot to unmute myself, sorry. I can check, I was just looking at the, let's see, I can figure out when I was just looking at the thing from Mandy Port to get on. So February was when I started.
Oh.
Oh.
Yeah, then you're all
Well,
set.
Then that'll cover. All right, well, we have adequate personnel here, so let's bring this meeting to order. So January 18th, 2022, Newburyport Conservation Commission meeting taking place on the Zoom platform, and this meeting is being recorded. The first item on the agenda are the December 7th, 2021 minutes. Does anybody have any comments or changes or anything?
No. The only thing I have is under item 4, and it talks about the beach management plan update, and it says MVBA. It should be MRBA.
Good catch.
I had two small things under number 5 on the first line. It should say, due to. It says, I can't see it because, Julie's got it.
Oh, sorry, let me scroll down.
There you go. So,
Due to finance, oh, yes, due to the financial constraints.
yes.
Okay.
And then, page 5 in the last paragraph, the second line, it should say done, not down. Under page 5, are you on 5?
Oh, the second to last, which paragraph? Are we on?
Are you on page 5?
I'm on
Okay,
page
page
5, yep.
5, the last paragraph, the second line.
Okay, a veneer on the entire length of concrete wall, whether or not is on the owner's property.
No, I'm sorry, second line.
The second line of the last paragraph?
Yeah.
Are we, maybe we're,
No, I'm sorry. Here, wait a minute. Page 5, last paragraph, second line should say done and not down. Oh, shoot. Let's try page 4.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yep.
No,
Yes.
Yeah, right there. That's the one,
Fine.
page 4.
no, that says done on the site. No, there was a
Oh.
place that said down instead of done. It just didn't make sense.
Okay, maybe.
Last
maybe
paragraph,
Gretchen-
second line. I'm sorry, go back to page 5 and let's see if I can find it.
Yep.
Maybe I put down the wrong paragraph.
Just do a search for the word down.
Yeah,
Do that. Or actually, maybe Gretchen could do that.
yeah, okay. And then on page 6, the third paragraph, the second line.
You know what it is?
Oh,
Carol,
I've
we
got
have
different-
different pagination.
That's what it is. Okay.
Was it though? What do you remember what section it was in?
It was, I had page 6, the third paragraph, the second line should be to be considered.
Okay.
You know what, if it helps, Gretchen, I could just send you the a marked up version of my copy. Maybe that'd be easier.
Probably a good idea, especially since it's not something the commission needs to like
Yeah. we don't
discuss
need
and
to talk
agree
about it.
on. So
Okay,
I'm
I'll
happy
do
with that.
Okay. All right, is that it? Okay, get a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second,
All right, roll call, Paul Healy,
yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes.
Dan Warshall,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes,
Carol Wagon,
yes, I'm assuming this is yes with the edits,
yes,
right? Yes, thank you.
and I vote yes, and hi, Dan.
Hey, Joe, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Good, thank you.
All righty. All right, next item. New and old business, Plum Island updates.
Well, to start with, there will be an MRBA meeting a week from this Friday. So that would be the 28th of January at 10 a.m. There's no Zoom link for that meeting yet, but it will be held over Zoom. So once an agenda and a Zoom link are sent out, I will forward that to you all. And you may also already have heard online or elsewhere that there was some significant damage done along Reservation Terrace because of the storm yesterday. It was pretty powerful nor'easter and a lot of heavy winds and high tide. And so the core bags and rock section along Reservation Terrace were overtopped by a significant amount of water and sand. One house was condemned on 75th Street. And right now, DPS has been working around the clock to get the sand off of the streets. It was more sand than I've ever seen out there in all the years I've been going out there and looking at this stuff. And in fact, there was sand in the streets up and down Northern Boulevard. It was really all over the place. But so they're putting the sand back up on the dune, getting it off the streets. But there's only so much they can do out there because there's very little room left to move things around on the dune without being in the low tide area or high tide area. So that's sort of where we are. We had a meeting today to discuss potential next steps for preventing additional damage out there, but didn't come up with any solutions at this point. Still, they're still in discussion, and we're having GZA work on some ideas for us, which we may or may not be able to discuss next week, depending on how, if GZA can come up with anything in time for the MRBA meeting. I'm guessing that'll be a topic of discussion at MRBA.
Was there any damage to the rocks in the core bags, or did they do what they were supposed to?
The core bags look, well, you can see the core bags now much better than before because the sand that was covering them has now been washed off. So you can see the top section of the top bags on either end of the rocks, but they look very solid still. They don't look washed out. They're not torn up. They haven't shifted or rolled or turned or anything. They're really solid. I think they did an amazing job at what they were supposed to do out there. I think they could be covered with more sand if that was a possibility. I'm not sure if it is or it isn't. And then those could stay put. The area of rock in the middle got really heavily overtopped. It's also just a lower area of elevation, which is why we couldn't put the core bags there and why the rocks had to go in there. But that was damaged a little bit. I would say some of the smaller rocks were shifted around, maybe fell off, maybe some of them sunk a little bit, but it really still looks pretty good. And also I think that did its job incredibly well out there. I think without that section, the houses and the roadway would have, it's hard to even imagine the kind of damage they would have sustained without that, to break up that energy.
What additional measures are being investigated? I mean, what else are they looking at doing?
It's hard to even know right now. Anders is sort of struggling with what we're trying to come up with, maybe 3 options that we can look at and discuss and maybe go to regulatory agencies with or something, but it's hard to even imagine what those 3 options would be. I mean, you could think about maybe a secondary level of protection behind on the landward side of the existing rocks and core bags. But you can't really go seaward because then you're in, you're below mean high water, and that triggers all kinds of federal and other state permitting requirements and things like that. So I wish I could say. I think we'll find out more next week.
Okay.
I think one avenue to pursue is to put a lot of heavy pressure on the Corps of Engineers to do something with the jetty. That's what it's going to take.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right,
that's the only
right.
thing that's gonna fix it,
Right.
assuming that even fixes it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
That was
Is it-
discussed today too. That is one of the things there are a few things that are moving forward, and getting back in touch with the Army Corps at a high level is on that list.
Even the dredging is a temporary solution.
right, no, the jetty's something's gotta be done with the jetty. Okay, do we have a 23 or 25 Hale Street
Yes,
discussion?
we do. We also have someone with their hand up, Richard Goulet. I don't know if there's a quick question or do you want to wait till the end, Joe?
If Mr. Goulet can keep it to a minute or 2, we have a long agenda.
Yeah. Okay, hold on. All right, Mr. Goulet, if I've allowed you to unmute yourself if you want to ask a question.
Yes, yes. I think the opening remarks is that this is recorded, and my committee members are not all logged in tonight, but how is it possible to get a copy or to access this meeting here tonight regarding Phillips Drive?
Oh, okay. So, yes, as you said, this meeting is being recorded. And once the recording is complete and we get a copy of that from the Zoom platform, it will be uploaded to the city's website. So you'll be able to, and anyone in your neighborhood who's missing this meeting about Phillips Drive tonight can listen to the recording by going to the City of Newburyport's website, the Conservation Commission page, and then you can find it through our minutes. It will be under the section called meeting minutes, and you'll see there'll be a recording there.
Thank you, kind.
You're welcome.
Okay. All right, next, 23 to 25 Hale Street.
Yes. So do have Tom Hughes and Lisa here to discuss that, and they sent me a presentation file today, which you're looking at now. So Stephen and Lisa, you can go ahead. I mean, sorry, Tom and Lisa.
Is Lisa?
I promoted them both to panelists.
Okay. Can you demote Mr. Goulet?
Yes, I did that. Tom, are you here?
Yes, I think Lisa was going to start off.
Okay.
Yeah, I was muted. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So thank you, members of the commission and chair and Julia. Lisa Mead, Tellerman Costa on behalf of Craig Pacina with Tom. And we were here a few months ago and we talked about the potential development of a small building at the front of this property, which is at the corner of Malcolm Hoyt and Hale Street. And the board wanted to see a couple of things. First was to see the whole site so you could understand the relationship of what was being proposed to the rest of the site. And then we met with Julia and we also looked at the adjacent site as well. So the idea was to essentially carve off a developable lot at the front of the site and put a small building similar to, well, not in style, but the idea would be light industrial with bays in it and parking at the front. And then to turn over the rest of the lot, either through a restriction or pure deed to the city for, conservation purposes, environmental preservation purposes. You can see how much space that existing, the proposed building would take out in the front of the lot. And when we were here last time, we talked about the environmental benefits of this lot. But one of the things we didn't talk too much about was if we were not to do this, what else could happen to the property? And there was suggestion perhaps that nothing else could happen to the property, and therefore why would this be of interest to the board? When the reality is, you can see in the bottom left hand, kind of to the middle of the site, there's a pretty significant uplands. And so, Julie, if you could just go to the next, the GIS plan. So you can see the building that you approved a few years ago at 841-DAH, you can see that. And the new building would be in the uplands on the right of that, in the front. But there is an older industrial building immediately to the left adjacent to this property. And that property, the portion of uplands in the back could be carved off of the proposed property that we're talking about, 23 to 25 Hale Street, and sold to the adjacent property for expansion of the existing structure. Or quite frankly, that building is older, it could be taken down and a new proposed building could go on and use that adjacent parcel. And so why this would be important is that the Conservation Commission could prevent that from happening, and that uplands in the back would actually has, and I'll let Tom talk about the environmental qualities of not just the uplands, but the wetlands on the site. So I think there is a benefit, a public benefit to the commission and to the city to allow the front of this lot to have a small building put on it and the rest of the lot to be restricted. Tom, do you want to talk about some of the other environmental issues related to the lot?
Yeah, sure. So if you look to the right in this image, you can see there's a stream that runs through the site. This stream comes through the area. There's a relatively large, flat, meadow-like area. There are a couple small upland inclusions. This area was maintained as meadow up until a couple of years ago, mowed regularly. And it does serve to provide an awful lot of flood storage for the area. And then you've got this wooded buffer that is over between this lot and the next one over, which is a really large upland area, a lot of nice mature trees. There's a fairly open understory through a lot of that. It's really a very pretty piece, providing an awful lot of nice buffer function. If we go up one to the plan sheet, what I want you to do in terms of getting an idea of the scale of how big that upland area is, if you take a look at our proposed building and parking lot area, you could probably fit that maybe twice in the upland area down there that we're talking about. So it's a significantly, large upland piece that that is really kind of a nice edge piece to preserve. And then the other thing is that I want you to take a look at where we're trying to propose a development that would be as close to the street as is reasonably possible. That would need a variance from the zoning board, but we're able to keep the 25-foot buffer intact. And if you go back to the aerial and you take a look at that section of the lot, what you see is it's really in that 25-foot where most of the mature trees on site are. So we're able to preserve an awful lot of the canopy that exists on site. I'm not saying there wouldn't be any tree loss, but we'd be able to keep an awful lot of it. And through careful landscaping, I'm sure we could add to it around the perimeter of the parking area and around the building edge with a good landscape plan. And what we end up preserving is that really large wooded area down at the bottom there. So I think it is a piece that would be valuable for the city to acquire and own and totally control for a number of reasons. And one is, just to prevent any future scenario where that area down bottom gets developed as an exchange for developing an area right up near the street, in between these light industrial, kind of commercial buildings that are there now.
If we go back, Julia, so you have to maintain a certain portion of the lot in order to proceed with the development, because you only have a certain percentage, correct?
Right. We show an A&R lot right there.
So just if you can refresh my memory, would the part of the lot that's not developed, would that be protected by a deed restriction or something? And
Yeah.
let's assume that the main part of that upland is deeded to the city. The part that's owned and not developed, what would be done there again?
So I would,
sorry.
Tom, hang on a second. So everything inside the red, the new red square, if you will, Julia, where the building is, the new proposed building, that would be an A&R lot, right? And then everything outside of that in the red would be the area that we would deed to the city or put a restriction on, not just the uplands. Is that what your question was, Dan?
I was just wondering a little bit more about the part of the lot that they maintain ownership of, the A&R zoning. Is there any development that can happen down the road to the back?
No. In fact, I mean, we could put an agreement to put like a no build area in the back or something like that. I don't think you could do it anyway, but there's no intention to do that.
Okay, just thinking ahead, that's all.
Yeah,
That's a good question.
in terms of within the regulations, could we do something back there? We would have to mitigate and whatever, because there would be wetlands involved, or we'd have to get a waiver from your 25.
But
No
that's a good
disturb.
question.
But we
Yeah.
could protect that. We could find a way to protect that, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't
because-
think the applicant would be opposed to doing that. protecting it.
Right, because you're saying you're staying out of the 25-foot no disturb zone back here
Right.
anyway, right? So, I mean, potentially you could put this into a conservation easement, everything beyond the 25-foot no disturb on the lot that you maintain control over, right?
Correct.
That-
Yeah, I
that's
don't think there
possible.
would be any opposition to that at all.
Wasn't, back when the building to the left there was built, weren't we coming up against limits to the development on this lot? I can't remember the terminology.
So within your regulations, you have a 20% disturbance of buffer zone number.
Mhm.
And that is the number that we came up against. We didn't go all the way to it, but we used most of that up with that. If you recall back then, we actually initially came to the commission with a 3-building scenario, which had a larger building along Hale Street in the area we're talking about now. And we also crossed to come to the upland area in the back. And at the time, you know, we were just looking to get something permitted and went forward with that building plan there. But, you know,
So this is the reason we're here, Joe, is to talk about potentially needing the waiver from that 20%, the public benefit that would be associated with that. I mean, that's the genesis of this conversation.
Okay.
So what would be the acreage that would be turned over to the city?
The
So
remaining land, 26,332 is labeled there. I believe Steve has updated that number. So that is,
it's
26,000 or
No, it's
200?
no,
200.
236,000. So
right.
that's just under 6 acres.
4 acres, I think.
Okay, 236 divided by
4, right? 24, right?
I don't know. I don't do the math well.
Yeah, no, I can't say my
No,
brain.
it's about 5. It's about, if you use 44,000 square feet, it's about 5.5 acres, something like that. Anyway, it's
No, there's 63,360 square feet in an acre.
no,
No,
40,
no, no,
Oh,
40,
44.
43 something, 44.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
maybe that's a metric acre.
For reference, I just drew a rectangle in this upland area back here that sort of goes up to the 25-foot no disturb zone in these corners. And then just, you know, it's just a basic rectangle. It just shows you the size of a building that could potentially be proposed there one day. Again, it would have to go through commission permitting, but it's significantly larger, as they said, than the building that would be proposed up here.
Yeah, but with parking and all that,
Mhm.
um,
Yep, you're right.
Well,
it seems to be about this, it's around the same size as what's shown up there.
well, exactly. But my point was, actually, if you combine, if a piece of this land was carved off and sold to the adjacent property, the parking could be accomplished on that adjacent property. You could actually build out that entire area. Well, within
Right.
the buffer zones, not the entire, but essentially where Julia has the square. So, right.
And if you look the top and bottom, she's only at the 50-foot line on the top and bottom. She's at the
Yeah.
25 on the,
It can go this
the right.
way. Mhm.
Mhm.
They can use this space in here. They can come back around this way, around the back of the building. You know, it's just, I wouldn't say that we have any reason to believe it's likely, but again, you never know what's likely until someone proposes it. So that's why I just wanted to sketch this in here.
Mhm. Yeah, as personally, as a denizen of Hale Street myself, I've driven by there a lot, and we need to understand that there is a large stand of trees that would go away with the proposed building. It's There are large deciduous right up near the tree. All the gray area north of the
Yeah.
pine trees, those are all large deciduous. So, which is why they don't show up
Yeah.
in this photo. So that's something we need to take into consideration. There will be a lot of trees taken down for this.
And there are some things that we could actually look at doing. One is in the landscape plan, increase tree planting. The other would be if we go back to the plan and you look along Malcolm Hoyt, there's an upland area along Malcolm Hoyt, and we could also mitigate with some tree planting in that area as well. So there are some things we could do, and that whole section, if you look at the aerial, that area of Malcolm Hoyt is, it's going through succession right now, but it really isn't wooded in any way. So that is wide open. So there would be some potential to try to preserve overall canopy to some extent with that.
So the
How
question
far
is,
over the, how far over the 20% rule are you, or the 20%?
I don't have the 23 Hale application right in front of me. I seem to recall we were at about 18% with that. And the thing is, the geometry of this lot is such that almost the whole, so the wetlands on the inside, right, and the uplands are on the outside. And it's not like you have a clean straight buffer. So it removes an awful lot of upland from consideration just because of the geometry of the lot. And actually, if we had a little bit more wetland there, we would have been eligible for some flexibility because almost the entire lot's buffer zone, except in the area where we did that development.
so what we're,
Well, one question I had, can this, the 84 1E lot, can that be further subdivided to get away from the 20%? Can it be segmented that way?
well, I think that's why we're here, right? Because it's already been segmented. I think the way this, I mean, part of the problem is, not problem, but part of the challenge is the way the regulation is drafted. It makes you take into consideration the whole, even if you divide it up. So.
Yeah, and I would say the regulations are not, I don't know that they're 100% black and white, but it seems like in terms of if we were to subdivide it through an A&R and then come into you with little pieces and say they all get 20% now, it seems like a better way to go was to come in and say, okay, yeah, we put in this other building and we think we have a reasonable trade-off here of some more buffer development in exchange for preserving a pretty nice piece of land. And what you see on the plan is an A&R, and we do have more frontage, so we could actually do multiple A&R lots here. If you look along Malcolm Hoyt, I mean, we've got plenty of frontage there. And I think the minimum lot size here is an acre. Is that right, Lisa?
I think maybe an acre and a half. I'm not sure. Maybe it's an acre. He's got 54 there, so.
Right. It was close to an acre. It might have been 50,000, but
Oh, it is. I think it's 50, actually.
okay. So, if we had the frontage, we could do 4 more lots out of that. And the reason we drew the lot line the way you see it is I thought it made sense to give full control of the
Stream.
whole area around the stream to the city.
Just educate me. What's an A&R lot?
Approval not required. So the way you divide property is either you do it through a subdivision, which is where you create streets, or you do it by division where it already fronts on a street. And so that doesn't require, that's a non-discretionary permit. If you have frontage on the street and you meet the lot area requirements, the planning board has to approve it within 21 days. So it's not, it's as opposed to a subdivision, which is more discretionary.
Can you tell us what part of that, so you're looking at the area inside the red, how much of that will be for the building? All of it?
No, so if you look at the, see the green at the front,
Yes,
then that little yellow, that little yellow area right behind it, that's the
Yes.
building. That's the
that's
building.
it. And everything
That's
else will be left open?
Right.
Yeah, 4,000 gross square feet, 72 by 40 with the parking right around it, and everything else is open. That, I mean, that's, I think that's what we're trying to say is we're not, Craig's not trying to overuse this property. He's just trying to, obviously there's value in 8 acres or whatever. And, he's trying to do it in the most reasonable manner possible without being, quite frankly, stupid about it. And so we think it's pretty reasonable.
So everything outside of I'm not sure which outside of what line would you be giving to the city in essence?
So
or-
I think there are two, Carol. So the lot itself, which says 21 Hale Street, 54,520 square feet, right? That
Right.
is the lot. So we're not going to talk about that for a minute. If you go to the right, that's adjacent to Malcolm Hoyt, and you go all the way down to the back,
Yes,
this whole other area, we would deed over to the city, the remaining 236,332 square feet, right? And then what I think maybe Dan was talking about earlier is potentially putting a restriction on the back of the lot, 21 Hale Street, so that that couldn't also be further developed. But we need to have the lot area for zoning purposes to show that we meet zoning. So we could put a restriction on that.
so as of right now, you're not planning on building in that other area there?
That's
behind
correct.
it?
That's
Yeah,
correct.
it's mostly wetlands in there anyways.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, you
so
can see the
this-
wetland line right there. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So this is undevelopable anyway. In fact, most of this is undevelopable. But they could do some sort of conservation restriction on the back piece, starting at maybe the 25-foot no disturb line, just so that the commission can be sure that there's no further pushing back of this development into additional buffer area. And then, whoops. And then, this piece, obviously, this upland would be protected from any potential future development by either this property or this property owner.
Right, and we could just, and the proposal would be to deed that larger parcel, the 236,332, over to the Conservation Commission.
Well, I think it's a good idea. And maybe we ask for some money up front to fund maintaining that property.
Oh, for the restriction?
For the restriction.
Well, if
And
we,
actually, the wetland that you're proposing planting trees, if we were to mow that, I mean, there's some habitat value in mowing it, there's habitat value in planting trees, and the trees will take a long time to grow. So anyway, just a thought.
Yeah, I would only be looking at trees. If you look at that area down the, near where it says Malcolm Hoyt, there's an
Yeah.
upland, kind of a little bit of a higher piece of ground. I wasn't talking about planting trees in a huge area, but I was saying that, if we do have significant tree removal in the development piece, there's an area back there we could do create some canopy. And as you know, I mean, this area is going through secession right now. There's some value in continuing to mow it, and it's still within 5 years of it last being mowed on a regular basis. So I don't think it would actually require permitting at this point for somebody to go out with a brush hog and start, continuing to maintain it as meadow or portions of it. And this would give the commission sort of the freedom to decide and manage that process.
Right. Most of the mowing was done along the road. Was there mowing done in, where it says remaining land?
Yes, absolutely. If you get into my map and you turn on, which unfortunately, this is just just 2020 that we've given you. But if you scroll back through the year, you can see, at 17, it's got a lot less brush. And in 14, you can see that it had, I think, fairly recently been mowed. There's a big sort of flat field area. There are some little upland islands, which are not part of the delineation, that were not mowed. But most of the large flat area does, appear to me to have been mowed.
It also might be beneficial to stop the mowing and let it succeed and plant more trees just for stormwater purposes, potentially, given how much open space there is in the industrial park already. We don't really need more. And we have meadow, lots of other, meadow nearby as well.
Right. I mean, it would give the commission that kind of freedom to decide how to best manage the property and maybe even work with folks in the neighborhood to see what people want. And I think down the road, it is an area that currently provides flood storage. And it does give the city a piece of land that I think is in a sort of a critical part of the watershed for doing flood storage management as well. So it would give you guys, I think, a pretty valuable piece from a number of different points. And there really aren't a lot of woods in the industrial park. I mean, you're kind of looking at most of it right there on this lot and then off to the left in the image.
So if I'm getting, if somebody could say that they're adamantly opposed to this, I'm getting kind of a sense that this is something the commission might be interested in the form that we've proposed it. Obviously, the devil's in the details, but we would certainly put something together and come back with a notice of intent in the same, same form that we've just talked about, unless I hear somebody say, take a hike.
You have one public member of the public with their hand up.
Yeah. All right, I'll give Diane Cross a minute. This is not general public speaking time, but go ahead.
Unmute yourself, Diane. I just allowed her to unmute. But maybe the question is no longer there. Okay.
All right, let's move on.
Yeah.
Right, so since I didn't hear any adamantly opposed to this, we'll put something together and come back. We really appreciate you taking the time to consider it.
Okay,
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
thank you. Okay, since we have no certificates of compliance, et cetera, this time, can I get a motion to open the public hearings?
So moved.
Second,
Roll call, Paul Healy,
yes,
Steve Moore,
Yes.
Dan Warshall,
yes.
David Vine,
Yes.
Carol Wagon,
Yes.
and I vote yes. First item is Lorraine and Michael Riley, 2 Spofford Street. Amend order of conditions continued from a long time.
Okay. Tom, did you send me a presentation on 2 Spofford?
Tom ran away.
Right away. Well, this is Tom's project.
No, sorry, I didn't run away. I didn't realize I'd muted myself and turned off.
That's okay.
video.
Did you send a presentation on 2 Spofford? or
No,
not?
because,
Yeah,
well, I
didn't
just
think-
sent, I just sent the landscape
Yep,
plans to you.
got it. I've
The
got them.
update and the update from Millennium.
Okay. So this was what I have on the screen right now was the original back in May 2021 request for amendment to the order of conditions for 2 Spofford. It had already been extended. It already had a few minor modifications. This is just to refresh everyone's memory. And they submitted a request for amendment to modify the landscape plan. And this was the plan they submitted. It involved some additional bluestone patios here and here, some walkways, a change in the driveway with an addition of a turnaround area. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, am I
Oh,
covering
that's right.
this?
Yep.
And this was the landscape plan that was submitted, and there were a lot of questions about it back at that hearing in May. Well, not a lot, but some questions about the materials to be used and the bluestone, et cetera, and the plantings and calculations and things like that. So it took a little while, but they did some revisions to the plans. And Tom, I'll let you take it from here. This is what was most recently submitted, or is that the one you
Yes.
want? Okay.
Yeah, so let me first start with the numbers. The site, as you know, was previously developed. It had what's termed under the Rivers Protection Act, degraded riverfront. And basically, the way the regulations go is you get to redevelop degraded riverfront at a 1-to-1 ratio. You get your 10% riverfront alteration as well. And then you also have an opportunity for mitigation that does not conform to the criteria or something like that, which is essentially a 2-to-1 mitigation. So what we did is we went through all the numbers, took credit for the degraded portions of the site, and the math is up in the upper left there. So you've got the 10% of the riverfront plus the degraded gives you just under 5,000 square feet. So if you take a look, you've got 33,191 riverfront on the lot. So there's an alteration number they get of 3,319. You add to that the what existed prior to the dwelling and decks and walkways numbers that you see, the 1,585, and that gets you just under 5,000. And then we went through the impacts, and you get that 6211 number. When you figure it all out, we needed some additional mitigation. So if you go now, if we can zoom out on the plan, what you see are green areas that are currently lawn. And what we've proposed to do is those will all be planted with native plantings, and I'll show you on the landscape plan in a minute. And that is an area converting lawn, which is not considered degraded riverfront, but it's considered altered riverfront. And we're essentially restoring the riverfront in that area, and we're providing connectivity of those restoration areas all the way down to the river. And it's all in the inner riparian zone. And that offsets the impacts to the sort of non-exempt alterations above those other numbers I went through with you. The other thing that we did is we redesigned or provided details on the design of the walkways to show that they meet some of the walkways that meet exempt criteria. And the other thing is the bluestone that is proposed, I think it's 1/2-inch spacing on the bluestone. We trimmed up the driveway a little bit. And given that driveway is going to have an awful lot of sort of torque from cars going in and out and turning, we do need to leave that as an impervious surface. But all told, what we've done is we've come up with a mitigation plan that offsets the additional impact. And we're not claiming any credit for all of the other planting areas that you see in the riverfront, which are pretty significant, and they're all loaded with native plants. And if we go to the landscape plan now.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Here we go.
So if you go to the landscape plan, the species list is in the upper right there. You got a ton of natives. We're looking to do, like I said, we've got natives in the down in the inner riparian zone that are proposed, and then native plants all around the house. And given that those are as much landscape plants as riverfront restoration, we didn't take any credit for those under that subsection G of 1058.5, which is where you get the 2-to-1 mitigation. We're getting that purely from that inner riparian planting areas that were added. So at
Tom, I
this
just
point,
noticed,
yeah,
just quick, I just noticed something though. I don't know that this landscape plan reflects, maybe this isn't the right landscape plan, because I don't know that it reflects this planting area. See how it comes
Right.
right up to the dock and right in front?
it
And
does.
then this doesn't show any plantings in here.
Yeah, hold on. I'm looking at that.
I feel like maybe I have the wrong one.
Maybe is that, let me,
This is from back in May.
no, we sent in December 1st date on a plan. Let me,
I felt like I had that.
yeah, can I share my screen?
Yeah,
Okay, let's do that. Okay, you have to stop sharing so I can request to
okay,
share.
okay, yeah, I'm sorry, there.
Okay. All right, share screen. Yeah, this is what was sent in with that plan. So you can see the additional planting areas here. And
There we
this,
go.
yeah, and you can see we've added additional plantings in here. We've wrapped in the proposed trees into those planting areas we're talking about. So it's really a significant improvement to riverfront function when you look at the fact that this is currently lawn basically going right up to the wall
Mhm.
and lawn going right up to the woods that then extend over further off site. So we reduce the amount of lawn on site, but again, there's all these other planting areas that are not being included. They're outside the 100-foot. And we're trying to do these, do the mitigation within the inner riparian in a way that is consistent with the regs. So I think overall, it's a good plan. We've reduced how much we were proposing to do in a way that still gives the Rileys the ability to pull into the driveway, turn around and have kind of an effective driveway. This is kind of a touchy spot to get in and out of, and you definitely want to be facing out when you leave the driveway. And allows them to have some, fairly attractive landscaping within their property and really make use of the property, and at the same time provides some additional riverfront value.
Can you zoom in on your plant list up there a little bit?
Yeah, sure. And keep in mind, this is landscape plan is for the entire site. So I think you'll see some Coosa dogwoods and things, but I think there's one Coosa dogwood and 3 arborvitaes, but really, if you look at the meat of the list, these are all some really nice natives. And you see that like these ground covers and perennials are labeled as not within the wetland restriction area. That's basically how the landscape architect referred to the riverfront. So all these natives, outer riparian, all these natives are outer riparian. Here are native ferns and ground covers that are proposed. And then trees that are not going in the riverfront, but are still, river birch, red maple, some pretty nice things going in.
Thank you.
Tom, if my memory serves me correct, the way back when some of the neighbors were concerned about their view of the river.
So I think
These trees eventually gonna block their view, or?
I don't think so. And because what happens is where the house is located up in here is really high ground. And then there's a significant drop in elevation as you go down. In fact, actually, I think just to make it easier. All right. So if you take a look, we're at elevation 25, 26 up where the house is, and the neighbors are back even higher. And where we're talking about planting down kind of along here, we're down, 13, 14, 15. So I don't see these things, and this is right along the wall to the bridge. So these things are all being planted where the elevation of the site drops off. So it'll take quite a while for a tree to even come close to being able to be seen by a neighbor, let alone block a view. And I think you may recall, but I think there were some really large pines along here, and I believe there was some cooperation with the neighbor, but those pines were concerned there were risks. They're outside of your jurisdiction, but they were removed. And you know, the view in this direction has always been sort of blocked by woods, and this way it's kind of blocked by the bridge.
Okay.
And I think in general, I think the neighborhood seems to like the house, at least what I've heard from, it's not that I've talked to everybody in the neighborhood, but the people I have talked to seem to like it.
Okay. We have any other questions?
No.
Okay, so I'll stop sharing. So with that, after a long wait, which I apologize for, it took landscape architect had to go through a round of revisions, and then Millennium had to digitize everything, figure out the areas, and then we had to do some refinements to the landscape plan. So that going around a little bit on the plan work to get this all to work took some time, and I appreciate the commission's patience. But with that, I guess we would ask that you approve the amendment to the permit.
We all set?
Motion to
Alright.
approve the amendment.
Hang on, I'm gonna ask the public.
Oh.
Does the public have any comment on this? Raise your hand. All right. Diane Crofts, you've been giving, you are now allowed to speak. If you are there, you have to unmute yourself. All right, let's move on here. All right, Steve, you were saying?
Motion to approve the amendment.
Second,
All right, roll call, Paul Healy,
Yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes.
Dan Warshaw,
yes.
David Vine,
Yes.
Carol Wagon,
Yes.
and I vote yes. All
Thank you
right,
very much.
get that one off our agenda. All right, next item is Ferdinand Benedetti, Jr. and Mary Ellen Ellers, 25 Basin Street, notice of intent, continuing from 12/7.
So, well, Tommy, you're gonna start off here.
Yeah, so since our last meeting, a couple of things have transpired, and I think we've made some plan changes, and we've also had a peer review done on the issue related to substantial improvement. So actually, why don't, Lisa, do you want to run through quickly the
Sure.
substantial improvement issue, and then I'll get into the plan updates.
Sure. So as the board is aware, we did, the commission is aware, we did have a peer review was retained, Mr. Rome, to review the
It's actually
appraisal.
Mr. LaChance.
Oh, sorry, I'm looking
LaChance.
at the engineer's letter, Mr. LaChance. So he reviewed the appraisal, and I will say the appraisal, he agrees, is within the realm of all the professional standards, and he doesn't disagree necessarily with the result. He has a little bit of issue with the land value, but by and large, you know, even if you use his his math as opposed to Greg's math, it's still under the 50%. However, he raised an issue related to the 25% issue, which we have dismissed essentially because we have a letter from a structural engineer that says there will be no modifications needed or additional supports needed for the proposed addition to the existing foundation. And you know that your regulations say that if that letter exists, the 25% rule, 50% rule, 25% rule does not apply based upon the certification. So we don't need to get into the nuances of the 25% rule that I put in my letter because we provided the letter from the engineer. Indeed, it's my understanding that the foundation isn't going to support the new addition at all. So with that said, we resolved the 25-50% rule or the new foundation rule. And I'm going to, and also we have approval from the Zoning Board of Appeals for the modification to a pre-existing non-conforming structure. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tom, who did the site visit with you, and let him talk about the changes that have been made to the plans based upon that.
Okay, Julia, I don't know if you want to get into the presentation file. All I
Yep,
really need is
sure.
probably the plan, but
Oh, okay. Well, I've got it, so might as well just do that. All right, you want me to scroll down to the plan?
yeah, I think so. Unless the commission wants a refresher on anything, if we pull up that plan right there. And if we can zoom out a little bit. Okay, so a couple of things. During the site visit, a question was asked, okay, you're coming off with this deck, you don't have any stairs down to the ground. What if in the future somebody wanted to do that? Wouldn't it be better to show stairs on the plan? Now, so we talked to the client, and the original thought was, this is a deck off the kitchen. They didn't really want to turn the kitchen into, a regular means of egress, but they kind of thought about it more and may or may not end up building those stairs, but we're showing them as you see down there, going down into that area that's patio. The other thing we've done is we've labeled all the lawn as being removed. If you can kind of zoom down a little bit towards the bottom middle of the plan. Yeah, right in there. If you can see that note there, remove lawn and plant with American Beach, 1 foot on center. Basically, they're fine with getting rid of all the lawn. So all the lawn would go away. Then if we take a look at the path, we adjusted the path location. So it more goes down a little bit of a gentler slope. And we will add some sand in there to kind of soften that a little bit. That's an area where there's some buried riprap. There's a partially buried retaining wall, and there's old telephone poles that are buried kind of in there. And there's some bittersweet growing. So we would remove the bittersweet, put in some sand, and then the idea would be we'll plant on either side of a rope fence that brings us down and intersects with the existing walkway. We show the concrete block wall up top being removed. If you see right where the path ends. Yeah, right in there, you see the concrete block wall that was on the right-hand side of the path. Just up where the cloud is. Yep. So that will be removed. Then if we look down at the closer to the water where there was some wood sort of edging that was put in place to trap sand, and that will be removed and replaced with snow fence. It was actually doing a decent job of catching the sand, but I suspect snow fence will do an even better job and be more compliant with what the commission likes to see. Then if we can go up a little bit into the area where we were talking about planting. Basically, we are going to plant some dune grass within the bare spots in that area, in addition to the vegetative planting areas that we had proposed before. And we're going to also plant 12 rows of rugosas just scattered in that area. There's some commission members at the site visit thought it might be nice to establish a little bit of woody vegetation out there. And there was a question during the site visit about the Charlie Brown cherry tree that is out there, and they would actually like to keep it much as it, has been sort of maintained through pruning over the years and sure looks it. They do actually enjoy it. So we've labeled all those things. I think we've addressed all the questions and concerns that the commission had raised at the hearing, and comments that were mentioned during the site walk. To the extent we can, I'm happy to answer any questions. If there's anything I've missed addressing, please let me know, and I'm happy to do so.
Yeah, could you just scroll up a little more? I think there were some more of those wood edges, or maybe not.
Yeah, there are. There's, I think you can see those. We clouded the areas of things that have to be removed.
Okay.
I think there's 4 all told.
And that area that's in green that's labeled as sand, is that going to remain sand, or is that?
No, that's
planted?
going to be planted. And we would accept a condition that area be protected with snow fence to prevent trampling, given that there's the sort of walkway that's just on the other side.
So, but Tom, it doesn't say on the plan that that's to be planted.
No,
If
the
both
green,
of-
all the green areas are.
Is there a legend that says that? I'm just missing it right now.
I think there's an arrow in the lower part.
Yeah, I think there are arrows and notes.
Oh, plant with American beach grass, 1 foot on center. I was just looking for it up here and I didn't see it.
Yeah, I think he typically
This
labels it on a
section.
representative area. If that is
Okay.
an issue, I could get you a plan probably tomorrow with that arrow on it.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, no big deal.
Okay.
Same with this area, right?
Right. Basically that color, anything you see there is green is being planted.
Okay.
Those are our sort of formal mitigation areas.
I would actually
But-
really prefer, I know that it should be intuitive, but I would prefer to see those labeled.
Yeah,
If you're gonna, unless you're gonna have a legend, and if you're gonna point to one of them, I think they should all be pointed to.
Sure, I will
Yeah.
either have them all pointed to or have a legend added and get that
Perfect.
way to you.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
And I guess what I would ask is if that's the only issue that the commission consider, just voting to approve and just having Julia hold the issuance until I get her that updated plan.
Do we have any more questions?
Yeah, on the proposed addition.
Yep.
Let me get this straight as far as what was the issue as far as the foundation? That.
Oh, so in terms of the way your regs read with the 25 and 50% is if there's an existing foundation and it's certified that it can hold the addition, then that satisfies that requirement. And Lisa can correct me if I'm getting that wrong, but
If I get, let me just, so the regulation says that the 25-50% rule does not apply if, and I quote, a licensed engineer certifies that an existing portion of the solid foundation will not require modifications to support the proposed building other than new pilings exterior to the existing footprint, in which case the existing portion of the solid foundation may remain. And then this certification has to say that actually in writing, which is what we provided to the board.
Yeah, so I can't remember from what is in the location of the addition right now. I remember.
okay, so if we can,
figured
if we can
out-
go back to that, it's a deck. So the deck is being removed.
Yeah.
And new piles are being installed and the entire addition is supported on piles.
But doesn't it say it's outside of the existing footprint? I don't see this as a footprint.
What, outside of what footprint?
Isn't that the way it reads? It says that if the only foundation is the existing foundation or piling and so forth outside of the existing foundation.
No,
There's
so
no
what it-
foundation for this right now.
No.
It's the deck.
no, right, you're not supposed to modify the existing foundation in order to support the new addition. That's what it says. You may
And
not
so-
modify, without coming into compliance, you may not modify the existing foundation in order to support the new foundation, the new addition.
So basically, this addition is just tying into the old house and it's all getting supported with piles.
Filing.
Right,
That's correct.
right.
New foundation.
Okay, so it's not.
It's not a foundation, it's piles.
It's an
the
entirely new
foundation's-
foundation, elevated on piles, exterior to the existing building.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, that's right. This was at a different level. I remember you had to do some modifications. Is that correct? To make it work that way?
Correct. And if Andy's on, he can answer that, but,
Yeah,
right.
yeah. It's been a while.
Andy
Yeah.
sits there, has his hand up.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, sorry, I should have had him as an attendee as well.
No, he just
Yeah.
put it on. He just put it on.
Okay,
Okay, and what might be helpful is the panel just above that is the profile view from Andy's design.
all right, I've just moved Andy over to a panelist and he can unmute himself.
And if you can go to page 8, you're on page 9 right now.
Okay,
That might also help Andy kind of describe what's going on here.
sure. And you also increased the elevation of this addition, correct? So that
Yeah,
it
we
is
did,
at-
right. We did that just before the last hearing to make sure that we could accommodate the sea level rise and the regulations.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes,
So yes, as Lisa said, the regulations stipulate that the new addition has to conform to current standards, but that the existing foundation cannot be altered in any way to support the new work. And so that's the letter is stipulated from our structural engineer saying that there'll be no alterations or modifications to the original foundation, and that the new structure will be supported on pilings and actually has no need to support be supported at all by the original foundation or house.
And I think, David, to answer your question, if you look at this, you can see that there is, you see the stairs down into the, right.
For us, the big challenge was trying to get it to comply with the height requirements, so you can see the big difference between the floors.
So right next to the foundation where that stairway is there a piling there to support the addition or?
The way the regulations read that no modifications are made to the original foundation. In fact, when we did this section, it was when it was resting on the foundation, but had no modifications to the foundation. Since then, the plan, we added pilings next to it, so it won't even be adding any load to the original foundation. But this section doesn't show the pilings we added because it was an older drawing.
So is the pile just to the left
Just
of where the cursor is right now? The additional pile?
correct. It's outside the original foundation so that it doesn't
Right.
come in contact or undermine it in any way.
Right. And I think the piles are shown on the plan view, and I think those should be up to date if we can go to the plan view.
right?
And if you notice, so we had entertained the idea, says pile there. I don't see the
yeah, they're
closer
not.
piles.
Yeah.
not
But
up
we
to the
do
house.
need an updated plan that shows where all the piles are gonna be. That's
Right, so
probably
we-
pretty easy.
Yeah,
We
we
have done
will.
an updated pile plan that shows those
Okay.
locations.
Okay, so
We
we'll
can
have
get to you.
Everett update that. You'll also notice we're not cantilevering the deck, which was shown in that profile view. We did look at doing that, but it seemed an unnecessary structural exercise to try to do that.
So there will be piles under the deck as
Right,
well.
and they are shown on the site
Right.
plan.
Okay, so yeah, okay.
So we'll give you a pile plan because I've actually, we've seen the pile plan. I've seen the pile plan. So as has the structural engineer. So the pile plan exists. You're just not seeing it on that site plan. So so that would be the, similar to the, holding for to show the notes on the grass. We'll put the pile plan on here too, so you can see that, Julia.
Okay.
And the pile, the engineer's letter was the only thing that changed what our peer review had said. He was concerned with the 25%. I think it had something to do with the living area. And was there some issue as far as counting the basement or not? Am I
So
correct on that?
that's correct. But so your regulations provide two methodologies to determine whether or not there's a substantial improvement. One is a letter from the engineer. And if you have a letter from the engineer, you don't need to do the 50%, 25%. So we have the letter from the engineer. So we don't need to get into that conversation. I'm happy to, but I think it's a conversation that we probably don't have time for this evening.
Correct.
Okay, so we have the letter and that meets the regulation.
You all right with that, David?
Yeah, I'm not particularly excited about the way our regs read on this, because I don't really think we're following the intent of what we're trying to accomplish out here, but it seems like the regs themselves read this way.
It is what it is right now.
Yeah,
Lisa and Tom, could you remind me what the increase in square footage of the footprint is?
So that is less than 20%.
Yep.
And Ever
you
did
know-
update the calculations to take into account the stairway,
Okay.
which should be on this plan, if you can.
Okay, over here on the table. The reason why I'm asking is because so that there can be a perpetual condition that no additional increase above whatever the remaining
Right,
percent is may
Right.
be allowed and may be permitted in the future. So
right. So structure increase, he's actually got it at 20,
20.
20.0. The stairway is 42 inches wide, which is what gets us there. And I guess it rounds to 20.
Okay, so there can be no future increase in the footprint.
Right.
Okay.
And one thing I do want to note is the stairway was not designed by Andy. So if Andy, in reviewing this and they do go forward with the stairway, I would like to reserve Andy the ability to provide some artistic judgment on the stairway design, as long as he doesn't exceed the same area,
Sure.
and come back to you with a minor.
It's hideous, Tom.
There are clearly not enough triangles involved.
Oh, thank you, Joe. Well done. My office will love that comment. You made their day. Thank you.
Full disclosure,
Wow.
Andy designed my loft, so, and there are lots of triangles involved.
But you might add that you liked it, okay? Just
Oh, no, I can add that I loved it.
thanks, Joe.
Do I need to recuse myself now?
Good.
All right. Do we have anything of substance to add? Hearing nothing. Any comments from the public? Raise your hand if so. Seeing none. What do we want to do?
Motion to close the public hearing?
second,
I roll call. Paul Healy,
yes,
Steve Moore,
Yes.
Dan Warshall,
Yes.
David Vine, David, you are muted.
It's because I didn't want to say yes.
Oh,
but
well,
I'll say it.
did you say yes?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. Carol, Wagon?
Yes,
All right,
yes.
I vote yes. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right. Next item, Generic White City of Newburyport, Phillips Drive Neighborhood, Notice of Intent.
Okay, Z, let's move on.
I
Just need to
see
find-
Diane.
Their proposal. So many new, sorry, this is taking me a little while. Just a sec. This one, nope. Here we go. Now, we've got some attendees who need to move over to present this from BSC, David, promoting to panelist, Diane, whoops. And I don't know if John Eric is here or not tonight, but Sarah,
Don't see him.
promote to panelist. Okay, that's all right. Sarah and David and everyone, can you let me know if I missed anybody over in the group of attendees who should be promoted to a panelist?
I think that's it, Julie. I think it's just myself, Sarah, and Diane.
Okay, great.
I do have a presentation, if I could share my screen, if that's okay.
Sure. I'll stop share.
All right, everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, thank you, commission members. We do have just kind of a short presentation, go through what the project's about, what our impacts are, and then open up for any questions that you have. We've been working with the city for over a year now on the Phillips neighborhood for some improvements. The Phillips neighborhood is just north of Story Avenue and to the west of I-95, which is this roadway network here, which includes Phillips Drive, Ryan Road, Drew Street, which comes through, and Sullivan Street. So this is Phillips Drive. Really, this project is a city project. The project goals are to repair the deteriorated roadway pavement and add asphalt curbing, replace the stormwater drainage infrastructure, which is undersized, reduce groundwater infiltration issues that they're having. You can see here this picture, the cracking of the pavement is really due to high groundwater issues they have. A lot of the homeowners in this area have sump pumps because of the high groundwater issues. So we have connection points for them into the new stormwater system. Also, because the roadways are getting repaired, we're going to be replacing the public water lines within the roadway. And then lastly, to repair the city sidewalks. That's essentially the project as a whole. The roadways altogether a little bit over a mile worth of roadway that are getting all these improvements for the neighborhood. There are wetland resource areas within the area. We have a little stream that runs through here, goes under a culvert in Phillips Drive and goes out this way to eventually the Merrimack River. So there is a wetland network here, and then there's some other wetland networks out and around the site that we are outside of the 100-foot buffer. But really, the two wetlands that we're talking about today in our impacts are at the end of Ryan Road and where we cross with the existing culverts here on Phillips Drive. So first, the Ryan Road. So this is looking at the end of Ryan Road. You can see the wetland area in here on the back, which is a wooded vegetated wetland area. Currently, runoff from a large portion of the neighborhood discharges to the wetland and the stream through this culvert right here. So this is looking at the edge of the wetland area and looking back towards Ryan Road. We're proposing to upgrade the stormwater infrastructure in the roadway to accommodate up to a 25-year rainfall event. We are proposing to remove that existing metal CNP pipe that you saw and replace that with a new 36-inch pipe outfall with a flared end section and then a riprap area at the end. The area will come right up against the edge of the wetland. All of our work will be protected along the edges by erosion control. And for treatment, we are proposing a water quality unit here at this discharge point. So currently, the drainage system's undersized. There's no treatment, and it discharges directly to the wetland. What we're proposing is upsizing the pipes to accommodate 25-year storm, provide treatment, and then protection at the end of the pipe to limit erosion. So this is the Ryan Road section where we discharge. We did look at some natural techniques in here, bioretention areas, rain gardens, and all those sorts of things. Unfortunately, working with the city, the feeling was that we'd have too much tree clearing and impact in the buffer to try to do that type of treatment. And it was less impactful to do a water quality unit in this area. So that's the Ryan Road buffer zone impacts. The other area is the existing culvert that crosses on Phillips Drive. This is standing at the roadway at the edge of the culvert head wall. You can see the stream as it comes into the existing culvert and head wall. This is looking at the edge of the head wall and the culvert on one side from the southeast, and this is from looking at it even closer here. The city has video inspected this culvert, and we've run the calculations. The culvert is in fine condition, does not need to be replaced. It's sized adequately for a 25-year storm. So there's no need to provide any improvements to this head walls or the culverts. They're in good condition and should be functioning fine for many years. What we are proposing right now is this is Phillips Drive. This culvert's actually at a low point in the roadway. Drainage from either side of Phillips Drive comes in and directly connects to the existing culvert. What we're proposing to do is do the same thing, have both sides of Phillips Drive connect into the culvert. So we'll have a new structure in the roadway for those connection points. And then for treatment, we are proposing a water quality unit on either side of the culvert to provide treatment. So really all of the impacts that we're proposing here on Phillips Drive are within the roadway limits, and none are outside of those roadway limits. So pretty limited impact in this area on Phillips Drive. And really our major impacts are on the end of Ryan Road. The water quality units were sized per Mass DEP standards for converting water quality volume to discharge rate for the sizing. These are shown on the plans. So there's actually 4 water quality units as part of the project. We have designed the entire project to meet the 80% TSS removal for the Stormwater Management Handbook, and we're in full compliance with the Stormwater Management Handbook. So again, it's a pretty straightforward project. We're not proposing any new impacts, but we are within the buffer zone, and we are within the 25-foot setback at the end of Ryan Road for the replacement of the pipe end. With that, like I said, pretty straightforward, short presentation just to explain what we're proposing, and I'd open up to any questions that the commission may have.
So the water quality units take out the sand, et cetera. City has to go in and maintain them on some regular basis.
They will. So how we get to the 80% is we have deep sump and hooded catch basins. All the catch basins are getting replaced so that they come meet the new standards for the 4-foot sump and hoods. And then the water quality units are in line, and the city would have to clean the catch basins and the water quality units, and they're aware of that.
So is that covered in a management plan somewhere, or?
We will be preparing an operation and maintenance plan for the city at the conclusion of this project. I believe it's also included in the NOI filing, Julia, at the end for the stormwater piece of it. There is an operation and maintenance plan in there, I believe.
Yes, yes, there is.
Yep.
Okay.
Just in terms of schedule, the project's fully funded. And our hope is that this project will be out to bid next month so that we can hit this spring to start construction. The majority of the construction we anticipate will happen this year. And then final paving likely will happen in 2023.
So is it your sense that making these improvements will stop the flooding issues that have been going on out there for a long time?
Yes, our hope is based on our calculations that these improvements will definitely limit what they're seeing for flooding and the groundwater issues that the neighborhood is currently having.
Thank you.
You indicate this is for the 25-year flood condition. Is that standard design, or was that something that was come up by the city?
That was requested by the city. I believe the typical design standard is a 10-year storm. But with climate change and the increase in frequency of larger storms, the city requested that we design the system to a 25-year rainfall event.
And that's 25 years according to Cornell numbers, or is it?
It is correct. Cornell.
No. Hopefully we won't get too many more 100-year storms in the next 10 years.
Good luck.
But this,
I wouldn't bet on it.
yeah,
Right.
at least this is a bit of an improvement to the area. Do we have anything else? Any questions, comments?
Well, just out of curiosity, if you were to design for a 100-year storm, what would you have to do? And just increase the size of everything?
Yeah, it's more than just upsizing the pipes, right? You need the catch basins on sloped roads have to also collect it. So it's more than just upsizing the pipes. You need more catch basins, more inlets to capture all the water. It's significant.
Yeah, basically a lot more detention basins before
Yep.
it gets out. Well, it's a step forward, I guess. Anything else?
No.
All right. Anything from the public? I see Richard Goulet has his hand up. You are muted, Julie.
Yes, sorry, I'm trying to, here we go. Trying to unmute Mr. Goulet. Okay, here we go.
Okay.
You can unmute yourself. Thank you.
Have done that. Thank you. I'm a 50-year resident of 25 Phillips Drive. And the improvement here that's being discussed, it's important that it's not minimized, that the infrastructure needs to be severe. Not only myself and my neighbors have been living under very sad situation here. The quality of life has been an issue, and this is why it's important that the city council has moved forward to generate this expense. I myself also as a taxpayer, not looking to have any funds, spent incorrectly, if you will. But this development was put together, without maybe with today's standards, and it needs to be upgraded. And my question to David this evening is that the next to my home is 25 Phillips Drive. The culvert there is probably 50 years old, and I hope that your estimate not to replace that should be maybe some considered here in terms of the proper funds to be allocated to this project. And I didn't clearly understand the culverts heading north, if you will, next to my home. I didn't quite understand your explanation here, whether they were going to be lowered to, reach the invert, if you will. This water, there's a water source, there's a, a natural water source, if you will, where these homes were built, and it flows into the Artichoke Reservoir. And from the Artichoke, it flows into the Merrimack River. There is a culvert on Phillips Drive, but as it heads towards the state park, there is another culvert that is much larger than the one here on Phillips Drive. I just want to make sure that the engineering is, properly being estimated here as we move forward. It's a complicated infrastructure, and I look for your expertise to make, the right decision here moving forward. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate all your efforts.
All right, thank you, Mr. Goulet.
You're welcome.
I kind of had some questions that Mr. Goulet sort of brought up regarding not just the size of the culvert, but just the connection that it provides further up the stream. I wonder if it might make sense for us to get out there and take a peek at it. I haven't seen it.
Well, that's always a possibility. We want to do a site visit before we make a final decision on it. So with regards to the culvert, of course, if you replace that, you would need to do a much wider culvert, correct? You need to do one of the new, I can't remember the terminology.
Well, the culvert currently, we incorporate that into our drainage model, and it was adequate for the 25-year storm. So it didn't need to be upsized at all. The city, and Diane can speak to this, they video inspected the culvert. The culvert was fine inside. It didn't show any signs of deterioration or any cracks. So with that, we decided with the city that it was best to keep the culvert there. It works, and it seems to be sized appropriately based on our calculations.
Okay.
To Mr. Goulet's point, though, I guess the downstream culvert, which would be on, what is it, Hoyt's Lane?
Yeah, the city replaced that a few years back, so that's newer.
And it's larger?
I believe that's larger. I think because of the type of roadway that is, it's designed for a larger storm than what this one is. It is larger, but it being larger actually helps us so that we have free flow out of this culvert and through that culvert.
Okay.
I would be more concerned if that culvert was smaller than this one.
Or upstream.
Yep.
I just want to mention that quickly, that because there's still no DEP file number assigned to this project, because I think things are just going really slow at DEP these days, no fault of the project at all. But because that means that the commission has to continue, because you can't issue an order of conditions without a file number. As Dan suggested, maybe it would be good to do a site visit out there, just so you all can get more familiar with what's really going on.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Mhm.
Didn't we review a project right next to that Phillips Drive culvert a few years ago? Where we,
I don't remember.
I can't remember.
it seems to me we thought there was an infraction. It turned out there wasn't, but I think we did spend some time out there.
Yeah, that was some sort of a enforcement thing. but
Okay, I just.
It wasn't
I thought it was
Francis
the same
Drive.
thing.
Was it Francis, was it?
Francis sounds familiar too, yeah.
13 Francis, but that's on the other side of.
Right.
Oh, no, it was up, it was in this area
Okay,
somewhere.
no, I don't remember that.
So, Down, probably down near where this was, where the stream kind of came out to the road. I think there was some
Could've been for this culvert.
landscaping that was done.
Yeah, could have been for this culvert replacement that was done recently.
Yeah, I'm fine with a site visit. If we want to.
So we have at least 2 weeks, however many weeks, wait, we got 2 weeks to the next meeting. So,
2 weeks and there's no snow now. It's probably a good time to get out there.
true. So, I guess we can probably take that offline if we want.
Yeah, or since we have the applicant here, maybe we should just schedule it now.
Yeah, I'm happy to do a site walk and show you where the improvements are gonna be and what we're doing out there.
Okay,
Is there a day that works better for the commission?
Next week, early next week, are you guys available like Monday or Tuesday? Monday, Tuesday, or what? Wait, I'm looking at the wrong, sorry.
Monday's good for me next week, the 24th.
it's good for me.
Good for me too.
Yeah.
That works for me. You want to do 3 o'clock? Or do you want later? You can probably do 4 if that works for the commission.
It's getting dark.
Yeah, it does start to get dark.
I could do 3 or 4.
3 works for me.
3 is
3 o'clock.
fine.
3's good.
Yeah.
Great. Perfect.
That works for me.
Okay, so Monday, the 24th at 3.
Where
And
do we-
where
where do
out
we-
there should
yeah.
we meet? Yeah. Thanks, Carol.
We're getting to that.
It's probably best to meet at the crossing at on Phillips Drive for the culvert, which is right here.
Okay. Okay.
Plenty of room to park along the side of the road there.
Okay.
And then from there, we can walk around over down right at the end of Ryan Road.
Perfect.
Okay,
2 feet of snow cancels.
Yep.
Heard
Okay,
it's going south this.
all right. Yeah, if it's melted, we'll get to see the water running through there. Okay, so there's that. So you want a continuance to the next meeting?
Yes, please.
Okay, get a motion?
Motion to
Motion.
continue to February 1st.
Second,
All right, roll call, Paul Healy,
yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes.
Dan Warshaw,
Yes.
David Vine,
yes.
Carol Wagon,
Yes.
and I vote yes. All right, thank you.
All right. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. See you on Monday.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, let me go back to sharing my screen. All right, back to the agenda.
Okay, let me just hang on a second here. All right, next item on the agenda is Robert Padalaro, sorry,
Yes.
try that again. Robert Padalaro, 2325 Overlook Street, notice of intent.
Yes, good evening. Tom Hughes with Hughes Environmental Consulting. You guys may remember this site from several years back as formerly 11 Overlook. We did notice of intent, got approval for a house reconstruction. And unfortunately, the prior owners never got to actually go ahead and do that project. So now, since that's expired, we're looking to permit a home replacement at 2325 Overlook Street. It's a double lot out at Plum Island. If we can go to the next slide, just for the record, here's where it is. See the blue dot?
Mhm.
So if we can go to the next image. Is an
And,
aerial of the site?
Pardon me,
Yes.
yes. Julie, could you demote Mr. Goulet, please?
Oh, sorry. Yes, I can. Also, I want to just quickly mention that, let's see. That this site, if you were to go out there, you can't get there from Overlook Street if you're driving. You have to go down 71st, I believe, is it? No, I'm sorry. It's, you have to go down 76th Street and it sort of, but it just ends, 76 just ends at this site. Overlook is over here and Overlook is comes up from the south, but doesn't actually reach this site itself.
Right, it's unimproved at this location. Okay, so if we can click on the next one, you can see it's within the mapped area of VE 17. And now if we can go on to the next one. Okay, so this
Sorry.
is the plan as submitted. I did get an email from Julia asking me to have this split up into a couple different plans to better have you be able to see what the existing condition is versus the proposed. So probably best just to jump to the next one. All right, so we've made it clearer on this proposed plan, the areas that are expected to be vegetated when we're done. They're all colored in green, and the proposed project involves removal of some existing structures and basically centering the house better on the lot, and constructing a pile supported structure that fully complies with the requirements in the velocity zone. The increase in structure size is under 20%, and overall complies with all of the standards. The one thing I do want to note is, given that the existing conditions were a little bit different than the 2014 conditions when we did the first permit, there was more vegetation on the site in 14. So what we did is, you'll see in the table here, is we actually gave a comparison that included the conditions.
Sorry,
Oh, you might have to go to that. Oh, there it is. Okay.
there it is.
Yep. So what we did is, on the left-hand column, we have calculated from the previous NOI existing conditions. So what we showed is that we are actually increasing overall vegetation from the prior condition, just to demonstrate that we fully comply with the project, regardless of which existing conditions we look at. We end up with a net increase overall in native vegetation. We basically get rid of the sheds that are out there. The overall building footprint does go up, but again, we comply with the 20% when compared to both the 2014 conditions and the 2021 conditions, because you'll note the shed number is different in the current condition. So we took the more restrictive set of numbers, and we were able to demonstrate that the project complies fully with the performance standards, regardless of which existing condition you want to compare it to. So it's a relatively straightforward project. Everything's pile supported, open piles, elevated at least 2 feet above the floodplain. I provided our analysis under your land subject to coastal storm flowage requirement in the regs. We have the room for the sea level rise incorporated in the design. The other thing I'll note is there is a gravel parking easement that we do have to leave, which is along Overlook, that belongs to one of the neighbors. So we do need to keep that area in there as gravel to accommodate that easement. And that's all included in our calculations. So with that, I guess I'd open it up to any questions the commission may have.
One question I had, which is not really super related, but is this house gonna be on 70th Street or is it gonna be Overlook Drive?
The address is Overlook, so
Oh,
it will remain at 2325 Overlook, because 70th ends right at the intersection there, I believe.
right, but you can't get there from Overlook.
It's gonna be
Any
very
direction.
hard for delivery people and,
Oh, man.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's sort
That's-
of for the assessors and the homeowner and everybody to figure out. And Lisa's done the zoning for this project, and she might have some ideas on how the
Well, no, I mean, it exists, right? It has existed here for decades. So obviously they figure it out. The zoning board did grant a special permit for this.
So there's no parking underneath, it's all on the exterior, or,
I believe there's parking under.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that's, you've got an elevated house like that. I believe
Yeah.
that there was parking planned under. I don't know if Eileen's on.
I don't think she is.
Yeah,
Let me check out.
The Padalaros are, or
yeah,
Mr.
but-
Padalaro and Miss Cutter.
right. Yeah, but my understanding is parking underneath, because you kind of need that area to turn around anyway.
Yeah.
That you.
I do
pull in and-
think, Tom, that they could have a little bit more detail on the materials, like it says pervious parking and walk.
Right,
What is that? Because a developer or a landscaper or, once it leaves your hands, someone might consider that to be pavers.
right.
or-
No, I actually, I did talk to Everett about, yes, it has to be pervious, but it also has to be aggregate, and we'll update that. That pervious could be misconstrued by somebody. So it's intended to be clamshell or, pea stone type of thing, but we'll update that.
Tom, I thought you said that on this plan, the areas to be planted were in green, and I don't see any.
It's
green.
really light green. It's like a
Yeah.
really, really light green. So everything basically that's outside of the gray and the orange
Right.
is light green.
Right, I don't know if you can see like there's a slightly different color around the patio and deck as there is off to the right and left and down below. And actually, Julie, if you can zoom out a bit, think as it gets smaller, the colors become more evident. I don't know, does that
Yeah.
help? Can you
Is
see?
there a key anywhere though to it?
We
or-
will have a key added to the plan while we're updating.
The
it.
reason why I say that too, just is because you have
Right.
there's still some features that are shown and there's nothing that calls them out to be removed. So
Right,
unless
got
there's
it.
a key. Okay.
Yep, no, it's the same thing as what we did on base, and we'll add a key to
And
this.
maybe a greener green.
Yeah.
Okay, make the green.
Darker
deck.
green a little bit.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
It was done in the fall when, the grass started to lose its,
Right.
Okay, I didn't know we had seasonal plants.
Yeah, seasonal, yeah, we do. If you hold on to this one long enough, you'll start to see them change color again.
Oh,
Um,
good.
Yeah, no, so we can easily update those things. You know,
I'm
again,
sorry, I didn't understand. Are they taking down the house that's there now and building a whole new structure?
Yes,
yeah,
Okay. And where the darkish gray is, that's all, I can't
That's
really see
driveway.
it very well. That
Right,
whole
that's
thing is
driveway. That's
Oh.
driveway, because as you come in off 70th Street, and this might be helpful to go to the aerial.
Okay.
If you come in off 70th, right now, people kind of pull into the site and make a use of a large area to park cars and turn around and get out, because you're kind of at the end of 70th Street. There's nowhere else to maneuver. So we need that driveway area so you can pull in front of the house and park under, turn around and leave. In the update to the plan, we'll also make it clear what's happening under the structure.
Thank you.
Okay, we
So-
can go back to the plan, I think.
Sure.
So we can make those changes. I don't,
Is there a DEP file number for this one?
right.
As of when I checked just before the hearing, there was not.
I didn't think so. So we would have to continue anyway. So maybe we'll just like do those updates on the plan, just make it much more clear in terms of materials, planting areas, what's to be removed, what's to, all that.
Yep.
And that would be really helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll do that, and and then we can just, unless something comes up next meeting, just quick hearing and dispense with it. Okay.
So we'd ask for continuance to your next meeting.
Okay. You got a motion?
Motion to continue?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to make sure there aren't any abutters comments or anything.
Oh, sorry, you are correct. Anybody from the public want to speak? Raise your digital hand.
Sorry, Tom.
No, that's okay.
I also want to note that the next meeting is February 1st, just to be clear.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, seeing nobody. We do have a motion on the second. All right, roll call, Paul Healy,
Yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes.
Ken Warshall,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes.
Carol Wagon,
Yes,
and I vote yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
thank you.
All right, can I get a motion to close the public hearings?
So moved.
Second.
You can't be both, Steve.
Oh,
All right,
okay.
roll call, Paul Healy,
Yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes.
Dan Warshall,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes.
Carol Wagon,
Yes,
I vote yes. All right, let's go to enforcement and violations. 3Q Street.
Hey, good evening. Tom Hughes with Hughes Environmental Consulting. Waiting for the rest of my images to load here. And yeah, so at our last meeting, we went over a list of items to be taken care of to resolve the enforcement. And in speaking with Mr. Drago right after the hearing, he really moved sort of forthwith to get a contractor lined up right away. And we were actually ready to start by the Thursday following the meeting. Basically, we have done an awful lot of good things. The boulders that the commission was concerned about have been removed. You can see one in the bottom center picture that was being moved around there. 17 yards approximate quantity of concrete was removed from the site and backfilled with clean sand, which included the entire area of the old garage, and they actually chased concrete under a bit of the existing lawn to get that out of there. An arborist was engaged, took a look at the tree, wrote a report that was submitted to Julia, and she authorized the tree to be removed. So that's been removed. And we really moved forward quickly on everything. After the meeting, however, there was a concern from one of the neighbors who spoke with Julia. And apparently the work to do some repair work on the block wall that included the sort of concrete and veneer work that we've talked about was really done largely by the neighbor, and Mr. Drago participated in that because he understood apparently that from the neighbor that work was necessary to ensure the integrity of that wall. So apparently that neighbor came in, spoke with Julia, and I don't know, Julia, if you want to kind of convey your discussions.
Yeah, sure.
commission.
Yeah, the neighbor, Mr. Powers, came in and he said that he he had been before the commission a few years ago, because there is that seawall that runs in front of his property and this property and others out there, and that it was deteriorating, and he had submitted an RDA, and the commission approved his fixes to the wall, which he did with some small equipment, fixed the wall. But he's taken on the maintenance of the wall himself over the years, for himself and his neighbors. And he was seeing some deterioration happening again from water coming over the top and then eroding it out from the backside and undermining the blocks again. So he initiated this, what he would consider maintenance and repair and fortification of the wall, and spoke with his neighbor, Mr. Drago, who agreed to help fund it for his section. And that's the work that was done. And Mr. Powers wrote up a summary of the work he did for me and the reasons why. He also submitted some photos, and these are some of those photos that show the wall from the back. And you can see what he was trying to say is that the water is pulling out sand from in between the blocks, and the blocks are starting to shift again. He is preparing to submit some photos that show the backside of the wall, so we can see the reasons why he wanted to fortify that. But you can see here in these two photos on the right, where, if you remember when we looked down, when we were looking at that concrete and bluestone veneer work, you could see that it was cemented in place. And I believe that this cement is what we were looking at. And you can see it comes down through the blocks. And this was his work to try to kind of keep the wall solid where he felt like water was coming through from the backside. Whether or not that was the right way to repair and maintain the wall, I don't know, but obviously it's a existing coastal engineering structure. It can be maintained, but he should have come to the commission for approval for that type of work. So he will be coming to our meeting on February 1st to explain and discuss all this again, and the commission can determine, how to handle it at that time. And obviously it does involve Mr. Drago because it's on his property as well, and he did help pay for the work. But again, it was sort of under this premise of repair and maintenance.
So
Julia, do you have a copy of the RDA from?
Yes, I do. I do have a copy of I don't have it with me. I don't have that. It's in the office. It was a very simple RDA. He showed pictures similar to this back then, but it was much worse. There were blocks that were actually tipped out and falling out, and he went down onto the beach and just used some small equipment and pushed everything back in place. And that was the work.
How long
that he
ago
did
was
back
that?
then. That was, I want to say, like 5 or 6 years ago, maybe. I can't remember off the top of my head. I apologize.
Yeah.
So at this point, the bluestone wall is still up along the entire length, including Mr. Drago?
I believe so, yes, because once it became clear that this wasn't work that was done by Mr. Drago, and this neighbor, John Powers, was taking ownership of it and didn't want it to be removed because he was saying that he did it not just for an aesthetic reason, but because he was trying to maintain the wall. So that's when we said, okay, well, we're asking the wrong person to take this off, and we don't totally understand what the situation was with this. So we might need to deal with it a little differently. That's why we kind of put the whole removal of the concrete on hold. And as you can see, because it does extend down into the cracks in the wall between the blocks, that trying to remove that might actually be detrimental to the structure. So anyway, I just think this is something that we need to put off until February 1st.
So
Julia,
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I just want to add one thing. So to be clear, Mr. Drago was prepared to do it. And Julia got this call and visit by Mr. Powers. And so when we went in to talk about what we were going to do and how fast we were going to do it, it was, Julia, please back me up if I'm wrong, ask us not to proceed right now with the wall until that was straightened out. And that's why we did everything else except the wall.
Right, and I do want to stress that the other item I forgot to mention is the fence was also removed and replaced with a compliant fence. So we've done absolutely everything that was on the list that we were at the time of the last meeting really only committing to coming in with the schedule, because I just didn't think with the weather and contractor availability, we were going to be able to do that. We have also provided you with the plan work that you asked for, showing a comparison of the pre-existing condition and the condition without the proposed garage and everything, just of what was there. And you can see the boulders are all located up in the planting bed that's shown. And we've got each red number that you see there is an area. So we've got all the different areas that are there. And in a discussion in an email that I sent him with this, what I noted is that, you know, the things that remain, and we'll leave the wall out of it for this discussion, but the planting beds are pretty much self-mitigating. They went in an area of lawn that wasn't providing a lot of dune function. Most of the other stuff has been removed. The fence has been replaced. The two landings that are different size from what you guys approved, actually total area is less than what was approved, so they're kind of self-mitigating there. In addition, we've offered to the commission that on Mr. Drago's property, or with city permission on city property, but in that area on the other side of the wall with that big sand area, he's willing to install up to 200 linear feet of snow fence at a location to be agreed upon with the commission or its agent. You know, we've removed all that concrete again as sort of anticipated mitigation for the accessory structure that we're hoping we can kind of move past the enforcement and talk about tonight. Like I said, Mr. Drago really did take this on earnestly, and I think Julia can tell you that I learned about Mr. Power's visit while I was inquiring of Julia, is, you know, could she get the enforcement order we had discussed at the last meeting out so that we could start work, because we had actually got somebody lined up, and I believe that Mr. Drago had to pay some sort of emergency contractor fees to get him out there fast, but it was done.
Just to go back to the wall for a minute, Julia, the facade that got put on, was that at the same time as the RDA, or was it later?
No, that just recently happened. I don't know when, actually. That's a good question for Mr. Let me see. I know he did give me a letter. Here's his letter. And I wonder if he says when. He said he was told discussion was about, let's see, well, which I had just made extensive repairs approximately 3 years prior. And I think maybe that's when he did the RDA. Believing that my property estate on deed extended the former wooden bulkhead and a portion of my property being by the surf.
The rock work was done after Mr. Drago purchased the property.
Yeah.
All that was done.
So he says, as I monitored the wall after the past 2 years, I again noticed shifting and undermining take place. I decided that putting some small rocks on the backside of the wall would dissipate the water runover and sea splash to stop them from undermining the blocks of the seawall. The small rocks were being washed out. So then I installed a 5-inch wide veneer cement facade to stabilize the blocks from shifting, as was again taking place. It was at this time I asked my neighbor, Mark Drago, if he would like to participate and continue the wall across his property. He agreed and paid half. I did not believe this necessary had any adverse effect on any natural migration of sand on that side of the wall, as it's been grass for over 40 years, etc. So he just goes on to explain, you know, his rationale around considering it just his continuing maintenance, that he had been allowed to maintain the wall previously and did some more major work on it, and he considered this just a minor touch up essentially to the backside.
Right. And Julie, if you can go to the site plan again. One thing I want to point out to the commission is as soon as we heard this, we got more information from Mr.
Alright.
Powers. And the ownership of the wall, sort of as we look at it, if you look at the portion that's owned by Mr. Drago, it's really just sort of the center portion of that wall. So, you know, Mr. Powers kind of was working on the wall and asked Mr. Drago, explaining that it was important to the sort of longevity and maintenance of the wall to participate. And Mr. Drago thought it sounded like a good idea based on that. And he's, you know, he's committed to working, you know, with Mr. Powers and with the commission on whatever the ultimate resolution on that is. But when he came forward, it just put him in a awkward situation to do, you know, to do something that the neighbor thinks is actually going to be detrimental to the structure of the entire wall. So what we'd like to do is try to separate that issue out from the issues on Mr. Drago's property apart from that. And I think you can see from his actions after the last hearing that he moved aggressively to try to get everything done that was of concern to the commission so we could move forward.
I would prefer somebody else to speak right now.
I think it's like a reasonable compromise solution to deal with that separately. And at least now we know what was going on out there. I mean, that's certainly a very helpful bit of knowledge.
So what happens next if, assuming we take away the enforcement order and so forth, as far as the additional work that he wants to do?
Well, so my understanding is that all of this enforcement stuff came about as a result of when the garage fell and the whole discussion about replacing the garage, and then sort of this enforcement stuff happened. And where we were at was coming in with a minor change, I believe, to move the location, reconstruct it on piles and bring it out of the floodplain, which my understanding is the commission had expressed a willingness to allow that. So we had proposed a plan, which I think you should have here. And I think I also sent you a presentation thing. Yeah, so what we've done is, if you can see, there's an outline of the floodplain, which is based on the shape file from FEMA. So it's an accurate representation of the X zone. So currently the prior garage was located in the velocity zone. And what we're proposing is to build an accessory structure that would have an elevated deck built on it, all within the X zone. And we get rid of, and it's already gone now, the wood platform and all of the concrete and everything that was in there. And we show a pea stone area that we were proposing because, you know, it's sort of right up near the house in an area where likely there'll be people wanting to have a place to sit down and everything. But we certainly can talk about changing the size of that or the orientation or adding in. Yep, sorry.
One issue I have right now is we're discussing an enforcement order.
Right.
And we shouldn't be moving on to, you know, the NOI or
Right.
you know, additions.
Oh,
So
Yeah.
I think we need to decide what we're going to do with the enforcement order, and then next meeting we can discuss, assuming something changes. The next meeting we have that where the enforcement order is not there, we can discuss any other structures put up
Right.
there.
Well, Joe,
Yeah,
Joe, I would suggest we just leave the enforcement order in place. I think we agree that no fines are necessary at this moment. And we will discuss it with Mr. Powers at the next meeting as to how that wall should proceed. And at that point, if when that work is done, whatever the work may be, then we can lift the enforcement order and we can hear the notice of intent or whatever it was to begin with.
yeah.
Mr.
If,
Chair, can I just ask a question?
Sure.
If Mr. Drago, but for the wall, has done everything that the commission asked, why would it be inappropriate to talk about the proposed modification at the next meeting? I mean, that plan needs to be updated because it still shows some things that are now gone, but Mr. Drago did everything that the commission requested, but for the wall, right? And so my request would be that, and he's committed to resolving that. However, the commission decides to have that wall issue resolved, right? I mean, we would have done it this last time, but we're asked to stop because it was a much more complicated item than neither Tom or I knew about it, and neither did Julia, right? So I guess that's, if we could come in with a modified plan to show our proposal at the next meeting while we try to figure out the wall, I guess, I would ask to be able to do that and not wait until the construction or whatever it is that happens to the wall is done so that we can proceed with finalizing a plan.
And that's where we're going to come to a decision as to whether, and I recognize that Mr. Drago has done all that stuff.
Yeah, well, personally for me, it's okay if they want to file that notice of intent and for the, for its initial hearing. At that same meeting, we will also talk with the neighbor about the wall. And if the wall gets resolved, then, we can, put something into any order of conditions that will, before any other work begins, or some such thing, that the wall issue is also resolved.
Yep.
well, Mr. Chairman, my understanding is that the accessory structure changed. There's an existing order of conditions. And that this was the garage part of it was a minor revision.
Yeah, it'd be a modification, not a new order. I guess that's the.
Okay, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Right, and we did submit all that material. If the commission doesn't consider that the enforcement issue on the agenda is the appropriate venue for that, and you want to put it on the agenda at the next meeting as a minor revision, I mean, I would ask, Mr. Drago has clearly demonstrated he's willing to work with you and do what's necessary to bring things into compliance, and compliance on the wall integrally involves another party. And for him to go on his own on that gets complicated, but he's very, very much committed to working with the commission and with his neighbor on the ultimate resolution on the wall. And we would ask that the commission allow us to move forward with this minor. He had a garage there that he was rehabbing into storage space, and it collapsed, and now he's at a point where he would really like to move forward on that. I would like to, ideally, if we're going to come in with a minor at the next meeting, if there's any way to have the commission at least tell us in terms of what we showed on the plan, whether that was consistent with the discussions that you had prior, because I wasn't involved until your last meeting, to make sure that we're not going to have to, then revise plans on anything that's obvious to the commission tonight on that minor request.
Discussions with regards to that new garage?
Yes.
Yeah.
Did we have, I don't think we had any discussions.
I don't think we ever addressed this plan for the new
No.
garage.
No, my understanding was the discussions were prior to us coming up with the plan, was that the commission had indicated they were willing to allow it to be rebuilt if it was moved into the X zone. Or maybe that was just with staff.
Well, I
That
think
was- that was
it might have
before-
been with me and just saying that it is only allowed to be rebuilt if it's moved into.
Right.
Okay, yeah,
Um,
you have to understand, I just came into this,
Yeah,
you
Yeah,
know,
no, you're not the problem here, Tom.
well,
Well,
you know, but I'm trying to be part of a solution here, and we've
Yeah.
come up with a plan that I think it improves dune function for the site, and we've already in advance mitigated significantly for it. So I guess what I'd ask, if I'm not going to get any feedback on that tonight, is that we have it on the agenda at the next meeting as a minor revision. And if, you know, what I would suggest on the enforcement is at a minimum, you put the enforcement order on Mr. Drago sort of on hold, because I think an enforcement order may be just particular to the wall, and whatever solution, whether it's a filing or something on the wall with Mr. Powers, that maybe it would be appropriate to consider that needing to be a separate document naming other parties, as opposed to this one.
Would it be appropriate for us to have another site visit? Or do we
I
not
think
need?
so. I think it would be a good idea to have another site visit to look at specific location, one for the new garage, but also to see all of these changes. And look at the wall again, maybe with Mr. Powers.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'd like to look at the wall again, and not only Powers and Drago, but part of it is the city's responsibility too.
Yeah, we should maybe have someone from DPS come out. Because you're right, it is, part of it's on city
If
property.
that's falling apart, that needs to be addressed.
Yep,
It's outside of the enforcement order, but it would be a good idea to look at it.
mhm.
Yes, it's outside of this enforcement order, yes.
As far as the wall, before the next meeting, if somebody could research to see if there's any permits that it has, because I think that DEP may have some issues if there's no permits on this. And the other thing I was going to ask is that before the next meeting, if we could have a plan that we'd be working off of for, Tom keeps referring to a minor modification. I don't know if it's a minor modification or an amendment, but it's all getting kind of clouded as far as what we're acting on.
Yeah,
So-
I agree with that. Wait, I just want to say, I completely agree with David on that, because in terms of whether this is a minor modification or amendment, it's moving, it's definitely an amendment. It's moving the garage to a new location that is definitely going to have an impact on neighbors, or they would be interested enough to have this be looked at as an amendment rather than a.
Well, the neighbor that it would most impact has been actively discussing this, and I think the commission's aware of that, and he's well aware of.
I understand, but the
Right,
scope of the modification is beyond what would ever be considered a minor modification. I just gotta be honest about that.
All right. So the issue I have with that is now we're not looking at the first because your deadline's passed for filing for the first, correct?
I mean, commissioners, that's my understanding of a minor modification versus an amendment, but please, if you feel like comfortable handling this as a minor modification, that's your call.
David, you and Julia brought up, my concern was that it certainly seems far beyond minor modification to move a structure. It's going to be built on pilings. There's no piling plan. I mean, there's significant work being done here, and the abutter should be notified so they can attend properly and not just by hearsay.
Given that, I'm fine. I think we have enough familiarity with the site and what you're planning to do that we might be willing to waive the deadline for the next meeting, or I would be.
Well, we technically can't, unfortunately, Steve.
Oh,
I mean, I can get a legal ad in the paper in time. If I know that's an obstacle, I have an account with them and I know I can get a legal ad in the paper and I can notify abutters in time. It would be an issue of whether or not the city would accept it after last Friday's deadline.
Well, it depends on how soon you can get it in, but again, that is at the commission's discretion to accept something past the deadline as long as public notice can be done correctly.
I can get public notice in. I would probably be Thursday before I could actually get the actual amendment filing in, but I could get the legal ad and pull the abutters list tomorrow. So if that's something the commission would be willing to entertain, we would really appreciate it so we could move this forward and have a productive discussion at the next meeting on that component of it. And then, as I've said, Mr. Drago will work with his neighbor and work with you guys on whatever the ultimate resolution is on the wall, and certainly take care of whatever needs to be taken care of on his property with regard to that.
So does anybody have heartburn with letting this go forward? Or do we want to?
Well, so Tom, you're saying that you'd have the new plans, essentially the filing for the amendment in by this Thursday, so we would have it Thursday or Friday?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you would have it, you'll have it by the end of this week.
Yeah,
I
okay.
think I can get it to you by Thursday. I certainly can get the legal ad run, but I'll
Yeah.
have to contact the paper tomorrow.
No, I'm
And,
fine with that.
and I can do the abutters list. We already pretty much have the plan done, and it does show pile locations, et cetera. We've got to do some minor updating because, as Lisa indicated, it shows some of the things as existing that have now been removed. So we can do some minor
Mhm.
fixes to that. But if the commission's willing to give us that flexibility, we'd appreciate it, and we'll get this thing in.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I am too.
I am too.
I think that there was a lot of good faith shown here.
Mhm.
Thank you. So that'll be the path that we'll follow.
You okay with it, Dan?
Yeah, fine with me.
Okay.
Right.
All right, then that's what we will do.
All right. Thank you very much. I do appreciate it. I assume you don't want to give us any preliminary feedback on that, the other plan then.
No, we'll hold off on that.
But
Okay.
should we try to set up a site visit between now and then, or do we want to wait till after that comes in and take a look at it and then set up a site visit? How do y'all feel?
Don't you need to know? I think Mr. Powers is out of town, right?
We
Don't you need
do.
to know when he's there?
Yes, we do need. So let's wait and we'll set up a site visit when we are meeting on the 1st. And in the meantime, I will speak with the city and see if we can get somebody from DPS or somewhere else to come and take a
You
look.
know, it
at it.
seemed to me there'd be some record of, if it's city-owned wall, there must be something,
Oh,
some
it's
kind of.
really old.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
it's really old, and we pulled out really old plans, and you can start to see it. So
Right. There was a bulkhead there at that location that went back into the early 60s. And my understanding is part of all the block wall work the city did in the mid 70s.
Yeah, that would make sense. It's all the same sort of setup.
Yeah.
Right. But it was actually put there by the city, is my understanding.
Right. Okay.
Even the stuff that's in front of Powers and Drago's?
Yes,
they
yes.
put there?
Yep.
Well,
it runs all the way. It goes all the way. Julie, if you have your arrow on the plan, you can follow the wall all the way around.
Um,
If you
hold
zoom
on.
out a little bit,
Oh, yeah. Hold on, sorry. Not zooming out. Yeah,
yeah, the wall that Mr. Powers worked on is completely on city property. The stuff
yeah.
that's
So
behind
it's
it,
his house
city-
though. I mean, if you can see this, that's how sort of messed up things are out here.
Right, but the
Yeah.
well, no,
reality is the whole wall is.
so his
Oh, this isn't
deed,
his.
right,
Yeah,
his
that's
deed,
Mr. Powers' house. That's Mr.
Yeah.
Powers' house.
right, and his deed references to the bulkhead, which was what existed prior to. And I think his property, I don't know, we looked at this, we never fully went all the way back, but I think part of his land maybe came from the city at some point. It's just complicated. I'm
Well,
not sure that,
let's be clear, we did not run Mr. Power's title,
right.
right?
Well,
So,
the city has that wall listed on city property. My map has it listed city property, the assessor's map has it listed on city property.
Right.
yeah,
And-
the wall's certainly on city property in addition to a ton of other property.
Yes. So,
Yeah.
okay,
So-
we can leave that there.
Okay, so
Um,
we will get that filing in. I'll take care of the legal ad. It would be helpful, Julia, I don't know if you have a recent legal ad in Word that you guys have written, then I can just edit it, or I can pull one off of one of the. public
Diane
works
does,
websites.
Diane does all of our legal ads, so, yeah, I don't have like a copy of something that I could.
I'll talk to her. I'll get something.
Yeah. In fact, you should talk to her anyway, just, you know. just tell
Yeah,
her
no,
what's
I will.
going
I'll
on.
give her heads up that this is coming. Okay,
I will
I
talk
do-
to her. I will talk with her too, obviously, but
okay.
All right. So is our decision to leave the enforcement order in place?
Well,
I would.
Yeah.
We can always establish another enforcement order if we're not happy with the wall rules, and maybe start fresh on that one if there's an issue.
I would just leave this one in place for right now. This is getting so muddy as it is. I wouldn't bother adding that in now. We'll just wait until the next meeting.
So what about with zoning violations and all that, Julie? Is it okay if we allow them to go forward with
Well,
submitting this?
that's, I don't know, Lisa, where are you with
Yeah.
zoning? Is there an issue?
so I'm waiting to file for zoning until I know what we can do with the garage. Or the accessory structure, because it doesn't make sense to go to zoning until I know whether or not we're here. And then I'll go, the modifications on the house itself are mostly all minor and would be handled administratively. But the change of location of the accessory structure, we're gonna have to go in for a modification on. So I don't want to do that until I know where it's actually gonna be.
Right.
Okay.
Got it.
Thank you.
So we'll leave it there.
Okay,
All right.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Okay, so do we have an order condition?
We do. We have an order of conditions for.
Wait a minute, we need to close the public hearings.
Oh, why don't you close the public hearing, Steve?
Okay, motion to close the public heirings.
Oh, wait a minute. No, we already closed public hearings. Never mind.
Yeah, we're in
We're in enforcement right now.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay, never
Don't
mind.
confuse me.
Oh, it's so easy.
It is, that's the problem. All right, so we have what for, is that for
Basin
Spofford?
Street. Yeah,
Oh,
for
Basin,
Basin Street.
Basin,
For
Basin.
Spofford, you approved the amendment. And so the order of conditions is for Spofford Street. And there were a few minor
Spofford or
additional.
Basin?
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant to say Basin. Sorry.
See, I'm very confused now.
I'm sorry, messing everything up. At least my computer didn't blow up tonight in the middle of the meeting.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. So yes, 25 Basin Street. There were a few minor special conditions mentioned that we could add to the order of conditions for this. One is that, well, no order prior to issuance of an order of conditions, the applicant shall submit a revised landscape plan that labels all beach grass planting areas and other landscape features. So I don't even know that that needs to be a special condition. It's just something they're going to provide to us. We also need an updated plan showing the pile locations prior to issuance of the order of conditions. But then 2 special conditions could be, one would be a perpetual condition, and these projects in the V zone and AO zone that are expanding their footprints. This one it's at 20%. I think there could be a perpetual condition that says that there may be no future increase in footprint on site. Period. I was going to say of greater than X square feet, but there's no square footage left because they're at exactly 20%.
Okay,
And then the next one was with the proposed path that they show connecting the patio to the other path. They note that to be pervious path. I'm just gonna say, I think we should add some more, specificity and say that the proposed path shall consist only of clamshell or sand, and there may be no gravel or other substrate utilized.
yeah. that works
Sometimes
for-
when contractors go in and they lay down all sorts of stuff underneath what was supposed to be a gentle sand pathway.
Okay,
Okay,
That was it. Did you all, unless you all had some other thoughts?
no, pretty much
So-
covered.
I'm just surprised they wanted to keep that tree, but anyway, that's,
Their tree, they can keep it.
It was a special tree, or it is a special tree.
That it is. Okay, with that, and a motion,
Make a motion to issue the order of conditions?
second,
roll call, Paul Healy,
Yes.
Steve Moore,
yes.
Dan Warshall,
Yes,
David Vine,
Yes.
Carol Wagon,
Yes,
and I vote yes. All right. There we go. New and old business. We
Mr.
need
Chairman?
to- Yes,
I do think you actually have to vote to issue on to Spofford, the amended order.
did we not?
I think they voted on approving the amendment during the hearing.
Yeah.
Okay, so you don't have to go over any conditions
Yeah.
itself. Okay,
Nope.
all right, I
No,
just wanted to make sure that didn't get left behind. Thank you.
All
And
right,
thank you very much for all your time tonight.
Thank you.
thanks.
So on to new and old business. The regulations and the ordinance. I think we need to get an item on the next agenda to discuss changes to the regs, first of all. And possibly the ordinance as well. But we should.
Joe, do we want to establish a subcommittee to take a look at that?
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
that.
that-
It would, it's gonna need to, it's gonna need to be
Smaller than
Public.
quorum.
public meeting.
Yeah, but the way we've done this kind of thing before is have a special meeting, have it posted. But then a few people can get together and try to hash out the appropriate wording.
We can do that.
Yeah,
Okay. So when would you guys want to do that? We'd have to set up a meeting at another time. We could do it next Tuesday night. Well, I don't know. I have to check everyone's calendars. But I think that's a good idea.
wait, so are we talking about a special meeting of all of us to talk about the ordinance and regs, or?
Or
just in a
or subgroup,
subcommittee?
whoever is interested.
We can do that. I don't know how full our next meeting agenda is, but
In full disclosure, I suggested a subcommittee, not not as a volunteer.
Oh,
Come on.
too late.
Oh, I'm gonna get that subcommittee. So we're rescinding that subcommittee.
I think you just volunteered.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good idea.
What is this, the army?
You're a manager, aren't you, Dan?
All right.
I mean, if we don't have a full agenda at our next meeting, we could talk about it then.
Well, we
Awkward.
do in a way, because we have a couple of these things from tonight. We might have no, we won't have Hale Street by then, but we do have another, we have a certificate of compliance for the core bag project. I have to
That shouldn't
check.
take long.
No, it shouldn't take.
We'll have
long.
Mr. Powers coming, right?
Yeah, we have all of this Q Street stuff. Plus we
Okay.
have Phillips Drive again and Overlook again. So there's a little bit.
Well, we can just have another, we can call it a subcommittee. And Dan's not gonna make it, so it won't be everybody. And whoever, I don't know why we can't just have whoever wants to show.
Yeah.
Show.
When do you want to do it?
When do people have time at, we're gonna do like our regular time, or we're gonna, I don't know what other meetings are going on.
Is this becoming a public meeting? I mean, is that what we
Yeah.
have to do in order to do this?
We can post it as a public meeting, but I don't believe it has to be one of our regularly scheduled public meetings. It can be anytime.
No. It can be during middle of the day, it can be
Yeah.
anytime.
Yeah, we're basically saving, not having a 6-hour regular commission meeting
Right.
Right.
and just splitting it up to that. But it would be a public, we'd have to be on Zoom and it would be
Yeah.
open to the public.
Mhm.
Sure, we can't do it in a bar somewhere?
I know.
No, we can't. You haven't read all your open meeting law stuff, have you?
No.
Well,
I
if we
guess
No
not.
post it as
no-
public, we could just invite people to our.
No one
new
said that you
location.
couldn't. You can have Zoom app on your phone and you can,
That is true. And we will notice how much you're drinking.
Don't have to be at your house.
I'm just kidding. I don't
do
mean to,
Zoom.
I don't mean to make this meeting last any longer than it already has. I
Yeah, but it's
withdraw
funny.
the suggestion.
Look at them.
It's comedy. We need some comedy.
Hmm.
Um,
How about next Monday, since we've got a site visit scheduled anyway? I can't go hiking.
Oh,
So
Yeah.
sometime that day.
Yeah.
Or evening.
that's it. I'm free other than, after we'll say 11:30. I'm free the rest of the day other than the site visit.
We could do it right before, right after the site visit. We could do like, I don't know if we want to do it right before, maybe right after, like 4. We do the site visit at 3.
Okay. And we're gonna plan on doing it on Zoom?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we come back from the site visit and then go on Zoom? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what else we can do.
Unless you want to do it
Sometimes our site
earlier in the
visits-
day.
Sometimes the site visits go longer than you might think.
Yeah.
Yeah, how much, what if we met at 2 for just, oh no, it may not be long enough.
2 or 1:30.
How about 1 or 1:30 for an hour or so?
Yeah, because we
Yeah,
need
why
time to
don't we
get out
think in
to,
terms of a set time, amount of time to discuss it? I like that idea.
All right, well, then we can do an hour.
About
starting
1:30 to 2:30.
Yeah.
1:30 to 2:30, and then we go to Phillips Drive, because that will not be a short site visit, I'm sure.
Okay. So we'll
right,
set up the meeting for 1:30.
I'll send a Zoom invite to you guys.
Yep. Okay. And I think that's it. Anybody else got anything else?
Yeah,
Well, excuse me, I would add that if somebody wanted to volunteer to sketch out some approximate language to the change that we were thinking about.
We are having trouble hearing you, Paul.
Oh, is
There you
that
go.
better?
That's
Yeah.
Yeah. No, if somebody wanted to volunteer to just write out a suggested change to the wording, it would help moved things along much more.
Yeah, I think we have that, don't we, Julie?
Do
So
we?
I,
Oh, okay.
I sent you guys an email with that, or maybe it was late last week. It was Thursday with suggested changes in
Oh.
wording to the ordinance and to the regs. So there were two documents I attached to an email. And if, Paul, if you can't find it, I'll send it to you again. But what I wanted to ask you all also is that those are sort of my suggested changes. I know we've talked about lots of these things over the years. So if you have any suggested changes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm just saying it for these kind of subcommittee meetings, it goes a lot faster and better if we're starting with a non-blank piece of paper.
Yeah,
Yes.
no, got
Yeah.
a full piece of paper.
Yeah,
Just because it took us like 4 years to get the ordinance rewritten.
right. Yeah.
I'll resend that to you, Paul.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Julia, can you send it to me too,
Sure.
just in case?
Just
I'll resend
resend
it
it
to
to
everybody.
everybody.
Yep.
I have it already.
Okay.
Well, you're gonna get it again.
No, I refuse.
All right.
Too much
And
email.
Dan, since you're not gonna be with us, why don't you send us some comments too?
Sure, I'll take a look at it. I'm sure I have the email, but I'll look forward to seeing it again.
Okay, sounds good.
Can't wait.
Oh, come on, Carol. All right, anything else? Oh,
Yeah, in regards to my reappointment, I stopped by the mayor's office last week and talked with the administrative assistant, and she said they were going to have a meeting the next day regarding commissions and boards. And so everything was on, to bring the mayor up to date. So she was going to bring up my reappointment, and she also asked if we had any openings, and I said yes, one.
Geez, that.
And I haven't heard anything, so I don't know what got discussed or anything. So
No one even told me about that meeting till now. But she does know that she's known, I mean, I think it's just been a busy couple of months for her and with changing mayors, et cetera. But she does know that we have one vacancy and that they were gonna hold off on doing anything till the new mayor came in. So I'll check in with Andy and with her before she leaves next week. They're hiring someone new to replace her, so.
okay.
Steve, when does your term end?
last December 1st.
Oh, geez.
No, but you legally continue until either the reappointed or replaced. All right. Anything else? Other than a motion?
Motion to
Motion to
adjourn.
adjourn.
Second,
Paul Ely,
yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes.
Dan Warshall,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes.
Carol Wagon,
Yes.
and I vote yes.
I will
See
be
you
there.
at the,
Monday?
yep, see you Monday.
Okay.
Monday.
Bye-bye.
Okay,
Yep,
take
Monday.
care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.